Big Bad Tim. How you been doing, buddy? I mean, you took last week off to go hang out with your mom, which is always a very, very good thing to do. And now you're back home, ready to rumble with us.
That's right. That's right. It's been busy, lots of stuff going on, but just to let you know, I'm keeping it real and I'm watching the news. So there's a lot going on, man. A lot going on, and it's great to see that you and your show have kept your finger on the pulse.
Well, you know what? Thank you to Nicole Sackage for filling in for you
Yeah,
last week. She has
very
been
much.
she has been so dogged on this story that it's made us look much better than what we probably would. But you know what? Grant Cameron is amazing. We got Melinda Leslie coming on in a couple of nights to discuss the Jack Houck version of these notes. And Jack Houck passed away a few years ago, but Melinda's been waiting to hold on to these and waiting for the right moment to let these notes come out, and we will get more into this in just a little bit of time. But yeah, man, it's been a wild couple of weeks here, and you know you're back in form, you're back in shape, doing your thing, and it's good to have you here. And you know, hey. Very proud. We should mention to our audience. You know, earlier this year you lost your dad, and still big time condolences for that. So, you know, Tim's mom has to, called her son up and said, "Hey, honey, mom needs some little Timmy Seanor time," and you can't say no to that. You just can't say no. So
That's
good
right.
on you for being a great son too.
Oh, thanks. I mean, of course. Yeah. And I was getting work done while I was there, not just for mom, but some stuff on my project, and I've got a lot of good stuff coming. So keep your eyes open. I will share it as it happens.
All
So
right.
back to you, Dave.
Well, let's get started on it right off the bat, you
Yeah,
know, because we already mentioned, you know, Oak's notes and Jack Houck's notes. So that's Oak Shannon and Jack Houck, which really puts a real stamp of approval on the Wilson documents from Admiral Wilson and Eric Davis. The original notes were found in the archives of the late Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon. I mean, you know, what's your interpretation of these?
so, well, as I understand it, according to the notes, the Wilson Davis documents, that was a conversation that took place between the two of them on some pretty high levels regarding their understanding of some pretty big topics, including crashes, bodies, and metamaterials. And I think it even went a little deeper into their opinions on abduction. And I think there's some pretty big assumptions made in there, if not factual statements made in there from people that were well informed having a conversation. And these are notes, as I understand it, that were from the recollection of Dr. Davis. And so now we have two more sets of notes that I believe were either in the conversation or were recipients of the documents, and it was then their conversation. And Dave, actually, I was hoping for you to dig in a little bit deeper here because I think your knowledge is probably at the peak on this. So please, would you
Oh
explain
my goodness.
exactly what Jack's notes and Oak's notes
I am
are?
still I will be honest with you. I am still studying them. They
Okay.
are they are deep. They are well informed, and you know, we're going to be going over a lot of them, like I said, with Melinda Leslie
Okay.
here in the next couple of days. But you know, I think it's a lot about confirmation, and not only about confirmation of the Wilson documents, but a confirmation of a lot of a different programs that are going on simultaneously within the UFO world. I mean,
Yeah.
guys, the one thing that's, and I'll be honest with you, these don't scare me. They do, because it really goes to show how much cover up is going on here.
Yeah.
That's what my overall view on it is they don't want us to know. They don't think we're ready and they don't think we deserve it. Okay. And to me, it makes me wonder how much they do know. Okay. About crash retrievals, about aliens. Did out of all those crash retrievals that we think that they have encountered, were there any aliens alive? Were they
Yeah.
able to communicate? Were they able to get the technology needed to advance not only the military but eventually maybe a little bit of mankind or
Yeah.
humankind? You
Interesting.
these notes scare me because it really shows how deep the cover up is going. And I don't think that even the president of the United States, whoever it is, there's been 46 of them, really understands the magnitude of what is being covered up, nor do the politicians. And I think once they, now that the Wilson Davis documents have been added as evidence as per the congressional hearings, a few months ago, how much of this is going to scare them? You know, who's really calling the shots on this UFO tech? Is it the government? Is it a shadow government? Is it, uh, uh, a separate college of people who are maintaining the secrecy of this story, and maybe they're sworn to life for that? I don't know, but it's scary to me because it goes what it tells me is there really is very few people who are controlling 7.75 billion people's attitudes on this planet and understanding on this planet. It doesn't have anything to do with corporations. It doesn't have to do with, electric cars or Bill Gates or anybody else who you think is nefarious and controlling the world. No, this is different. This is different. Very few people are calling the shots on the one story that's going to affect everybody in humanity that's present and in the future. And to me, it scares the daylights out of me, Tim.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that there's something definitely to be said about, the control of information and the timing of this. Now, I know that some of our work group here that you work with were pivotal to the release of these other notes that came out recently, Jack and Oak's notes through Melinda Leslie and Grant Cameron and Nicole Sakich. And I'm thinking that, their efforts in the timing of this are excellent. The fact that this was just entered into Congress, hopefully, perhaps these outside notes will also get entered into Congress. Wouldn't that be fantastic? And so, if we can at least get these looked at by the right people, then maybe they will interpret them as negative and have fear the same way you are. But maybe it'll at least get that dialogue open and they'll start talking about this as a real topic because the
Well, I,
timing is
I
important here.
agree with you. I agree with you that they're going to start talking. What I don't agree with you is I don't think that we're going to get much in the public eye. I don't see any
Oh,
more
yeah.
public hearings on this. I don't see any more videos coming from the Navy because the Navy has literally told Congress, we're shutting the hell up. You're not getting any more videos. Don't ask us for anything. They're really flexing their military industrial complex muscles right now on this subject. And, there's a comment in our chat room tonight uh, that Richard Dolan was on with our good friend Jimmy Church just last week, and he said that maybe the truth may be too awful for many people on this planet to handle. And we have been stating that for a long time. And I hate to reiterate myself when I say, look, we don't know how this is going to affect the economy. We don't know how it's going to affect religion. We don't know how it's going to reflect people who suffer from depression and anxiety. We don't know how it's going to affect the food industry, the gas industry, the markets. All right. Are we going to go like we did during the pandemic? And, the aliens are here. So now I have to go buy 6,000 packs of Kool-Aid and 4,200 bottles of Metamucil and 10,000 packs of toilet paper. Right. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
And this is where I tend to think, and I remember asking Lou Elizondo this: was the government's eyes or the Space Force's eyes on? I didn't know he worked at Space Force then, but let's just say the UFO eyes watching how humanity reacted to the pandemic. And he said definitely we were, because this is a situation that will affect every single person on this planet, because life will never be the same once it's confirmed. And if we have that many people who are believing in that threat narrative, just like the movie or the television series V or Independence Day or whatever it may be, that could cause a lot of problems going forward with many people. Because remember, Tim, we're not just talking about people who are living in the concrete jungles here. We're talking about the people who are living in the real jungles as well, of India, of Thailand, of the Amazon in Brazil. Some people, the pygmy tribes in Africa, where there's still people out there on this planet who've never seen a white human being or a Chinese human being or a Japanese human being, let alone an alien. So this is going to be very interesting on how it plays out. And I'm not sensing positivity because we keep pushing a threat narrative.
Right. Well, I think that these documents are going to be important because they don't really express a threat narrative from my interpretation of what I've read. I think it's just an expression of things that have been covered up. And I think that, like you said, you know, it's unfortunate that there's a select group that gets to know this information. It should be made public. How would it be handled? I think that's an interesting question. Stephen King actually put that in Twitter recently. How would we? That I hope he writes a book. I think Stephen would be a great creator of a narrative that could go disastrous potentially. But there's a flip side to it. It may have been here forever and will be here forever, and we may never even need to know. We may be coexisting as it is. And so it may be of no importance whatsoever. We could probably coexist if we have been. We could continue to, let's just assume. But I think the fact that the human race is so curious perhaps will be its own undoing, because it seems like once mankind gets involved in things, well, we tend to bastardize it, I guess you'd have to
We're
say.
good
And
at that. We're good at that.
yeah, and so the technology and all that is obviously what we seek, but perhaps we should be seeking with our heart first, you know. Perhaps I think your earlier guest Travis had some great interpretations, and some of the photographs he had. I also photographed a portal with things coming and going, so to have a photograph of something like that really does demonstrate to you personally to have seen it and, to photograph it, to live it, shows you how potentially we can coexist and not even notice, right? Because if I had just been looking left, I would never have seen what I saw. And perhaps the same was for Travis and for a lot of us. And so maybe, like you said, we shouldn't be so concerned with the threat narrative that's being expressed by people that are trying to push this topic. Let's remember why that threat narrative was expressed originally by, I believe, To the Stars Academy. That was to get this out as a platform to be put in front of, Congress as a real topic, to be platformed in the media as a real topic. And I think that, in that sense, although it's a pretty serious misguidance on something that they're not informed on, to call it a threat, it has successfully got it into the public eye. It made it to the New York Times. I am very disappointed to see the reaction that the Navy has taken here, where it could have gone, the other way, where it could have been more transparent. It's gone the obvious other way, and it's going to express exactly the same thing it's been doing along with the Air Force for 75 years of silence. They would like to zip it up, and now they're applying vocal pressure on anyone that's going to release these videos, that there would be repercussions, in the future, that's not an allowed thing, that it would be considered, a great act, a negative act. And so, I find that very discouraging, because in this day and age, we're looking for a movement of truth and transparency. And when we have re-elections coming, and some of the very pivotal players in this transparency push may or may not get reelected, that could be something that sets us back also. And so, these things do tend to happen in waves. So we may get set back for 5 years. I think that's why people like Lou Elizondo said this is a 20-year mission. If you want true disclosure, quote unquote, coming from the government per se, if you don't feel like it's already happened.
Tim, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because when we come back on Spaced Out Radio, we're going to go to an article from Christopher Sharp on Liberation Times about UFO changes are coming. The UFO Report with Tim Seanor continues on Spaced Out Radio right after this. Stay tuned. Thank you, Deb and Mr. Catfish, for the super chats there moments ago. Very much appreciate the love, everyone. Thank you so much, as well as to Steve, Linda, and Cat Chaser. Much love to all of you guys. We really do appreciate it, so thank you. Yeah, I'm very excited to get Melinda on the air on Wednesday to talk about this. This is going to be epic,
Yeah.
and I just learned about, a week ago, I had no clue that a man named Jack Houck existed regarding this.
Yeah, that's because the people that are involved do a very good job of keeping things quiet when they're trusted. And I think that speaks highly to the people that are involved and that are talking about it right now. Grant and Melinda in particular. You and I got to sit with her, Melinda, recently, and what an amazing person. What a character, and just what a fountain of knowledge. If I could go on a UFO hunt with anyone, it would be her. She would be a blast.
We
And she
gotta
comes
get
with toys.
I'm thinking year number 3 of the SOR fan party, I want to do down in Sedona.
Oh, it'd be great.
Yeah, I think if we all met up in Sedona, did our live shows from there, and got to all go on Melinda's UFO watch.
Now you're talking.
That would be awesome. Oh, excuse me. That would be awesome.
Oh, yeah. I would definitely be there.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm leaning towards.
Yeah, but you and your Vegas, you love your Vegas.
I do love my Vegas.
Oh, you're a character.
Yeah, I'm a character. Yeah, you're the one drinking a Coca-Cola and I'm drinking water.
Yeah, I don't often, but yeah, I'm falling asleep, man. It's way past my bedtime, as you know.
Yeah, I don't know what that's like.
My little ones get up at 6 for school, so it's rough. You know the routine. Come on, forget about it. We talked about this.
I know the routine.
But I do have some fun information if your audience wants to know. So I do have some things that I can't talk about that I'm working on, but I can talk about a couple of things that are coming soon. So very quickly, I'm working on an animated series on this topic, believe it or not. And it's got humor to it, and some real topics. And so I'm doing 12 episodes of that. And the same animator is going to do a comic book with me. And so that's happening. And we're
Nice.
doing that independently. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then I'm going to be streaming next week some of the raw data from this past summer, because we finished up Project Starlight, which is obviously the summer scientific program. And we're moving into Project Moonlight, which is the winter portion of the program. And so we're going to have a new location for the rig, which will actually be streaming live almost 24/7 for the Project Moonlight. So that'll be fun for everyone to tap in. But UAPRG is going strong, and my peer analysis is almost done. So I'll have a scientific paper with my raw data coming out in about 20 days, somewhere 25 days. And so that's done. And then once that's confirmed, I'll know what I'm going to be including in the documentary. And then that'll be coming out around Christmas. All
That's
independent.
awesome.
Yeah, man. Staying busy, but that's what I'm doing. Good stuff. It's so much
I
fun.
think that's great. I think that's great.
It has been so much fun, and what an experience. I've met so many people. I've got to collaborate with amazing people. So it's really all the help I've gotten.
Right. No, I think that's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so much fun, to actually get a little hands-on, and it takes a little of the mystery, I think, out of it, if that makes any sense.
Look at our buddy here, little Tommy Fessler. Go to bed. No one wins in Vegas, not even the UFOs.
I love Thomas.
Oh yeah, Tom's great.
That is great. He's so right too. Nobody wins in Vegas except him when Dave goes to bed. The second you go to bed, like literally, I don't even know if you got on the elevator yet. And I was like, oh, should I tell him? I'm like, I can't tell him.
No, you don't tell Dave. You don't tell Dave.
When I
All
finally
right,
won.
here we go with the final half hour. Thank you, Thomas, for the super chat, buddy. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. If you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with the UFO Report. Our good friend Tim Seanor is here, hanging on out with us to talk about an article that recently came out in Liberation Times, journalist Christopher Sharp, about changes coming, UFOs, and where we may be heading in the months ahead. Tim.
That's right. And so, directly quoting this article, although there were some hope that both the National Defense Authorization Act of 2023 and Intelligence Authorization Act of 2023 would pass before the midterm elections in November of 2022, it's now likely that the legislation is passed in this coming December. Between now and this December, we may see further amendments to the NDAA and the IAA, potentially tightening and adding to the current UAP language. And so, as Dean Johnson recently posted, there is some possibility that the IAA is attached to the NDAA, meaning that both pieces of legislation will pass at the same time. As for midterm races, Democrats are slightly favored, whilst Republicans are slightly favored to win in the House. And so if correct, then Representative Mike Turner who represents as a close relationship to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, would become chair of the House. And so basically, we are seeing that another politician to keep another close eye on is Senator Mark Rubio, vice chair of the Senate's Intelligence Committee and a leading advocate for previous UAP legislation. He faces a tight race in Florida and could potentially lose to Democrat Val Demings. And Demings is a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and has attended the classified hearings on the UAP in May of 2022. Following the meetings, Demings commented, "As a former chief of police, there's nothing I take more seriously than the safety and security of the American people. We will always investigate any potential threat from our adversaries. The top goals of this investigation are seriousness, transparency, and national security. Just because something is unidentified doesn't mean that it's unidentifiable. And the truth must always be a precondition to good policy." And so, to continue this quote, by treating this issue seriously, working with the Pentagon experts, and empowering witnesses and hard evidence, we can find answers, ensure the integrity of American airspace, counter global threats, and keep Americans safe at home and abroad. And so, what's next for the AARO? We can get into that next, Dave, but some concerns coming up here is some of the change in positions. Some of our goal leaders may not be in the same position, and hopefully we have some well versed replacements, but there's no guarantee. And Mark Rubio really did have a strong stand, kind of draws some concerns. Have you any thoughts on this article so far?
Well, you know what? The concerns, once again, are politicizing this event. I don't think that UFOs are going to play that big of a role heading into the midterm elections. We're hoping, all right, but I don't see it being that way. I don't see anybody standing up on the podium going into their local state debates and saying, "By the way, Massachusetts, we got aliens." I don't see that happening. Or, going down to Tennessee, guess what? You got aliens. I just don't see that happening. I don't see it being a big push to what we are trying to accomplish here. I really don't. But that being said, it's got to start somewhere. And where does it start?
Right,
Right?
right,
But being an elect, I think we see it come up in election. I really do, but I don't see it, taking over from the stance of military and infrastructure where roads are collapsing and bridges are starting to crumble. You know, I see it being a lot more.
right. My concern, I guess, is kind of how we're seeing this pushback coming from the Navy. Perhaps we're seeing like a less strong position coming forward from some of the goal leaders, let's just say. People like Mark Rubio falling to the wayside, um, Senator Gillibrand, people like that who obviously there is a change of position at some point, and those large voices sometimes fall to the wayside.
True.
And it's kind of the same timing, that we're seeing as this pushback from the Navy. And you know what? I'll just go ahead and finish up here. And so it's
Yeah,
saying
you
here, if
finish
legis
up and then we'll talk about it. You
yeah,
finish the article and then we'll talk about the Navy because I have some things I'd like to say about that.
absolutely. And so if legislation in its current form passes in December of 2022, the name AARO will be scrapped and replaced with the Unidentified Aerospace Undersea Phenomena Joint Program Office. So here's a new office, the UAPJPO. So just when you thought, it was safe to get out of the water, you're going to have to get right back in the
No,
water. And so if that occurs, it is quite possible that the Twitter page will be deleted and also renamed. So, have fun searching this out.
of course. I think if I was American and I had a very vested interest in politics, never mind Biden, Schmeiden, or dump Trump or whatever. I don't care. The scary part about it is the United States Navy having the balls and the audacity to tell the elected officials, screw you, we're not playing anymore. We're not doing the UFO thing anymore. We're done.
Yeah.
That is, to me, extremely scary.
Yeah. And I might just liken very briefly here to interrupt. Um, the American system of government working hand in hand with the military being the one really in control. I liken that to England and the royal crown and then the parliament really being in control. You know, it's like
But the
let's
difference
who
is,
like who makes the real decisions here? I think it's really the military in our country, it seems like. So, I mean, it's pretty tough to see the Navy backing down on a stance where it's like, okay, just like you're saying, enough is enough. Um, we can't
but
have leaks. It's trying to seal up those leaks.
if the American public was truly paying attention to the UFO story, I think the Navy shutting things down would be, if this wasn't UFOs, okay? If this wasn't UFOs, I think that this would be a top line story across the United States, that the United States Navy has just given the middle finger to elected officials who are supposed to run the Navy, and the President of the United States, who is supposed to be the chief commander of the armed forces. All right, that to me is incredibly scary. And if this was any other topic about, rather than UFOs, if it was about nuclear arms or whatever, like North Korea firing another missile over Japan and landing in the Pacific Ocean,
Or even just
okay,
drone incursions.
or drone incursions, absolutely. This would have a way different attitude than what we are seeing. And to me, if I'm American, I'm going to my representatives, my senators, my congresspeople, saying, really? Did you just let this happen? Do you not see what kind of, and I could be wrong here because I don't know your system very well down
Right.
there,
Well,
but that's almost traitorous.
who has oversight at that point? I mean, you're talking about the person that really works hand in hand with our top military officials, working hand in hand with our top government officials. And we recently just stirred the pot in that department, as you well know. And
Yes,
so with Gary Reed, obviously, and all of
absolutely.
that debacle. So these are the people that, you know, also are instrumental on determining how information gets classified at the source. So if it's going to be unclassified, fantastic. We'll hear about it. That would be the opportunity. There was an opportunity here that was missed this past year, I believe, where things could have gotten a push. We could have had more information. We could have unclassified things at the source. Instead, what we're going to see is the exact opposite. And that's become very obvious by the dialogue coming from the Navy. We're going to see more things classified. And the fact that we saw them scramble to cover their tracks with the most recent, uh,
Well, let me ask you this.
go for it.
I apologize for cutting you off.
No,
I'm
no, go
curious
for
to
it.
get your opinion on this. Was this maybe not a shot at the politicians, but a shot over the bow of Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo, who lied on the paperwork about getting the 3 videos out, and then, just to add insult to injury, put the To the Stars Academy logo on United States Navy property? Is this revenge for that?
I mean, could it be more transparent? And I think Chris Mellon's recent paper that he released, on this exact topic about the logo, and his stance, how he kind of backs off from his usual very staunch, uh, positive movement forward. He kind of took a step back in this dialogue. And I was going to talk about this tonight. Maybe we still have time, but I think you bring up a very good point, and the fact that this is also a direct shot at the politicians, um, as they're on their way out potentially. Let's also consider. Um, I think it's a very transparent shot across their bow, and I also think you're absolutely right. Chris Mellon demonstrates a little bit of backtracking. It's a shot at those guys. I think that they're probably feeling it. Um, I definitely know that Chris Mellon responded quite quickly to how things were moving in the Navy, and I think that, this logo was a direct demonstration. Now, in his opinion, he says that this shows that there's a lack of information in the DoD, and that people are so ill-informed that this sort of thing can slip through, and that nobody knew about it, and that this is a low-level person that created this logo and somehow managed to get there to the
No,
internet.
you know what? I'm going to tell you something
Now
just
that's
as
from Chris
I
Mellon.
know, but I'm going to tell you something just as stupid. A few years ago, Victor Vigiani and I raised up a little bit of a storm with the Canadian Mint when they released back to back coins of UFO incidents. One was the Stefan Mikulik case, the other one was Shag Harbor. Both coins sold out within days. Okay, you could go find this $120 coin now on eBay for approximately $3,000. Okay, because the demand for them is high.
Wow.
Here's what I'm saying though: the Canadian Mint needs to be signed off. Anything they do needs to be signed off by the Finance Minister of Canada. The Canadian Mint also stated that we are about providing coins regarding Canadian heritage. Never in my 49 years, or at that point, 47 years, have I seen UFOs as part of our Canadian heritage. That is screwed up.
Are there monuments in Shag Harbor and for the other
Shag
case you mentioned?
Harbor there is, Falcon Lake there is not.
Okay. Well, I mean, if there is some sort of monument, then I suppose a coin is not out of the question. Um, is it part of your history? Well, you have a monument.
Well, I understand that, but that's not the way Canadians think.
Right.
Okay, we're
It's
used
an
to
American
beavers.
way to think, perhaps.
We're used to beavers. We're used to beer. We're used to moose. We're used to igloos. We're used to snowmobiles. We're used to donuts and maple syrup.
Maple
Okay,
syrup. Yeah.
okay? UFOs falls nowhere in between that on Canadian heritage. It was a ridiculous line. And I
Right.
bring that up because of what Chris Mellon is saying.
It's like
Okay.
saying Bigfoot is part of Canadian heritage too. Like, would you be insulted by that?
Well, no, why haven't they made a Canadian Bigfoot coin?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, isn't it
Right?
kind of on the same lines of potential historical phenomenon for a country? I mean, I understand your point, but I don't want to get you too off topic, so
No,
please.
no, no. You know what? Hey, I would love to see a run on Canadian coins from the Rougarou to Sasquatch to Wendigos to all the weird creatures that we see. I would love to see that. There, if UFOs are a part of this, so are they. So are they. But I think it ties in nicely with what Chris Mellon was saying. Mistakes like that logo on the ODNI, okay, just are not made like that. They put those out on purpose. They do it to gauge public inquiry, public interest, to see if anybody notices, how long it takes people to notice. How long did it take UFO Twitter to go nuts on this?
Mhm.
They watch it all. They knew.
Do you
It's
mind if I
just go ahead.
let me quote him? Because I think that this kind of speaks perhaps how he's pivoting. Okay. And this is a quote from, let's see, this came out 4 days ago. And so that is called The Lesson on the DNI Aviation Logo. And inside this letter, there's a quote that I'm going to just read very briefly. The natural tendency in each case for UAP observers to think these occurrences were indications of the views of the people at the top or part of some coherent plan involving management of the UAP issue. In fact, each of these cases demonstrate the opposite. There is little, if any, coherent management of the UAP issue at a high level. It is only a slight exaggeration to say nobody at a high level of the DoD or the IC has time to even consider the UAP issue. Anyone who doubts that is out of touch. So he is saying here that, there's very little understanding, there's very little management of this at high levels, right? And what he's saying is that there's a reoccurring pattern, and I'll quote on here, regarding UAP reporting that appeared again recently when a new proposed logo for the Director of National Intelligence Aviation subgroup appeared on the web. Because it had flying saucer on it, UAP commentators naively made much of it, trying to read non-existent tea leaves. Predictability, the speculation proved for naught when it was revealed that there was nothing more than a draft prepared by a low-level government employee. Nobody at a senior level had even seen, much less approved, the logo. In fact, the few people at the DoD and the IC involved with the UAP issue were as surprised as anyone when this appeared on social media. And so he's saying that he sees this pattern recur over and over, in which some minor issue emerges and is misconstrued. And so he's kind of pointing the finger back at the UAP public, the UFO groups, taking this and running with it as being a major issue. But I kind of push back and disagree a little bit with Chris here. I think that it was somehow intentional. And what if nobody had made an issue of it? Would it still be there today? And they would have just gone with it? You know what I mean? And also, why was this created even at a low level? And I think, are we missing that massive fact that it's somebody at a low level thought that that was appropriate and created that? And, there are a lot of people in the UFO community that were like, look at where the UFO is placed. There's significant things to everything. There's no mistakes, right? And I think you may even be one of these people, Dave, that thinks that there are no mistakes. And you're maybe even questioning whether this was a mistake, aren't you?
I'm not questioning whether it was a mistake. Not at all.
No.
Not at all. They do these things to gauge public interest. They do these things to give us breadcrumbs, to send us on little sorties on trying to figure out what is going on. It's this is where I get conspiratorial and put my tinfoil hat on, okay? Because nobody's going to design that logo with a UFO on it and then just say, oops, this was a mistake. Oops, my 17-year-old kid was playing on my computer and just happened to change the logo. It's not how it works.
Right. And the timing also, at the same time as this massive pushback from the Navy, the DoD, expressing their apparent.
Agreed.
What timing is so important. And, we're also about to put this in front of Congress again. We're supposed to get another public hearing and a new release in October. So